Welcome to the 3 Degrees of Freedom podcast, where we explore lifestyle engineering with our expert guests to bring you in alignment with your own 3 degrees of freedom, location, time, and financial independence. All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, we are joined by a family man, accomplished entrepreneur, and real estate investor, Mr. Adam Zock. Adam is not your typical businessman, for he places family above all else, a practice that we can all take inspiration from. Having retired from civil engineering at the tender young age of 32 through astute real estate investing, Adam has built an impressive portfolio of 50-plus single-family rentals across 13 states and holds various alternative investments. His superpower is building time freedom through systems, people, and unwavering focus. And with a robust strategy of reverse investing and a drive to help other fathers achieve time freedom, Adam's really an inspiration in the world of financial independence and lifestyle design. So I'm looking forward to the show with Adam. Adam, how are you today?
I'm doing well, Derek. Thank you for the very flattering introduction. I love the colorful language. Very good.
Yes, I wish that I could take all the credit for it, but I have to admit that there's some Claude and ChatGPT in there that really helped me with that.
It's fantastic. A lesson we could all learn and use.
Absolutely. So let's start where we always start with all of our podcast guests, which is our first question of which of the 3 degrees of freedom currently available to you, which is location, time, and financial, do you feel that you're the strongest in right now, and which one would you like to develop further?
I would say location for sure. In fact, 10 minutes ago, so right before we jumped on this, my wife wrote on the whiteboard here, which was the summer of 2024. Do we want any sort of childcare? What sort of trips are we going to go? Whose family are we going to stay at? What sort of vacations? And the fact that we do everything with a computer, if I'm needed, besides signing on the dotted line, which is ironic. When we drove to Austin, Texas last year with our 3 young kids, I ended up having to buy about 4 properties because I have to physically sign. So we're like driving by UPS stores and doing notaries and mailing stuff, along the way. So minus that, stop where you can pretty much do it in any city or state where I was signing documents along the way. The ability to have the people and be able to do this anywhere is for sure the strongest. And then I always kind of have a toss up between time freedom and financial freedom, because depending on what measure stick you're using. So I would say I am actively going after financial freedom more right now, even though I feel pretty good about it, because I get to wake up every day and say, what do I want to work on? Which is my favorite thing from a time perspective.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it is a privilege compared to many people who are in the situation that we both were in a few years ago or many years ago in the corporate world, right? So for those who are listening, this could be a roadmap for you to eventually escape your W-2 as well, if that's what you desire. There are plenty of people out there that like what they do with their W-2. The point is that you have to enjoy what you're doing and follow that out of lifestyle design, right? So anyway, let's go ahead and jump into some of these questions here that I've pre-prepared for you after looking over some of your information. So, how has your transition from civil engineering to real estate investing contributed to your pursuit of time freedom, financial freedom, and location freedom? And what advice would you give to other people who are in a similar situation and wanting to make that shift?
So, on how it's contributed is it's immensely helpful on almost every degree. From my health to my relationship with my wife to the kids. When you don't have to have 2 working spouses being somewhere at 8 a.m. in the morning, it is tremendous what you can do with the extra time with the young kids that we have at home. And so whether it's me, I still enjoy waking up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and getting all the time in before our young kids wake up. And so I really enjoy that. But just having that freedom to pursue what we find meaningful. I just went on a date not too long ago with the wife, where we can do that during the day. We can do various different things. So on almost every level, it worked out incredibly well for us because we had that vision. It was a 10-year plan to get out of our W-2 jobs. It only took about 5 years, but we had that 10-year plan. And so if someone was thinking about it, I would say I was sitting there and I was in engineering and I knew that I was pretty happy, but I knew there was something more. In that, there was my foot just starts tapping under the table, where you're like, man, I'm designing this water tower, but is this really what I was put on this earth to do? So maybe a little bit of purpose, but also just a little bit of maybe worldly recognition for what I was doing. If I put up a water tower and people got water pressure, they're not calling me to say, thank you, this was awesome. Versus if we put someone in a house where they could have never got it without a bank loan. And Adam was the only person uniquely qualified to get them into that house. The level of intentionality and intensity of like a scale of 1 to 10, it was like a 1 before, and now it's like a 9, where it's like I'm impacting someone's life, their family, their livelihood, where they live. And so that was a pretty big draw to me. But I also got coached early on not to jump too early. Like I got my first rental property. I started listening to Bigger Pockets. I was like, oh, this is it. Like, this is it. It's real estate. This is so easy. I'm just going to jump. And I had a lot of wiser mentors that were like, hey, you have a great engineering job. Let's come up with like a 10-year plan. Buy 2 properties a year for 10 years. And if you do that, you don't need to get there in 6 months. If you got there, by the time you were 35 and you retired at 40, like, isn't that still really good? And so it helped manage the expectations of just those excitement of you start doing some real estate, you get really excited, and it's leveraging what you currently have, which was a really good high paying job, being very bankable, and leveraging that stability that it provided the family as we were growing our family into different things. So and the one piece of advice that I'll say is if you're thinking about leaving your job, or one of the first steps to leaving your job if you want to, is to get really good at your job. I know almost no one that was a terrible employee that made a great entrepreneur. Typically, in my experience, it's like you're a player. You're a linchpin. You're like crushing it in sales or engineering or product development or a team member. And you're like, man, my ceiling's capped. I want to do something else. And you either start your own business, you get into real estate because you realize that you could do insider trading. You could do the research, the investment, all that, and you can maximize your ROI that way.
I love this. This reminds me a lot of what I did as well, because everything that you said there, I'm 100% with you. The important thing here to note for all the listeners as well is that just your approach is similar to mine. There is a purpose for W-2 and for 1099s. There's a purpose, right? There's a map. And I appreciate that you mentioned that your mentors were like, slow down. Let's go ahead and try to build something out of intention and instead of just making the jump. Because I had a similar situation, Adam, where like, I thought that the only way to build wealth was through the Dave Ramsey method. And as soon as I found or read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and started to kind of put together some of the mindset pieces and figuring out that there's alternative ways to create income thanks to Cash Flow Quadrant and Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all those books kind of hibernated these ideas and started marinating them together to put them into a situation where you can put a plan together that includes a W-2, right? To help build up some of your experience and asset. And it's going to hurt for a little while because you're going to have family, you're going to have your side business and your main thing all at the same time while still being an A player. And you're absolutely right on that as well. So there's this huge glut of time and energy and effort that's going to be there for the next 5 years, right? Or 7 years or 10 years, however long it takes. But it's absolutely worth it. As an example of that would be you for sure. So let's explore that a little bit more. I want to find out more about what your journey is. Can you talk to us about what happened when you started investing in the side with your full-time job, and then walk us through to where you are today and what you're doing today?
It started off with this slow itch where I was like, I got to do something else. So it was like, I just started doing fantasy sports and getting deep into betting on players. And then it was day trading stocks. Then it was like, ooh, I could create this new product. And it was almost just mental stimulation. It was I'm doing engineering, but I don't know. It's a little bit of a stereotype, but men in general are driven individuals. We have ambition. We want to go further, faster. And if I'm not getting that in your career, if you're getting that in your career and you love it, kudos, you can climb up, you can be doing great work. And so I figured I wanted to do both. I equally wanted to give my employer the better end of the doubt. And I had even larger ambitions with huge and larger goals. So I just became magnificently obsessed with creating enough cash flow that I didn't need the job, and then I could decide what I wanted to do. Because selfishly, I wanted more control. I didn't want to have to lose a job, or God forbid something happened to my wife or my kids, or there's medical debt or different things, and I had to be somewhere and I didn't have enough PTO to do it. And so with that drive, it was, it turned into equally what I want and equally what I'm willing to give up. And a lot of that was I was willing to give up friendships, social time, news work, movies, networks, different things, and just happened to go to bed probably on average between 8 and 9 p.m. for 5 years, waking up between 4 and 5 a.m. And someone might just say, I have no desire to do it. For me, It's to this day. I don't set an alarm clock. When you go to bed at 8 or 9 o'clock, like your body just like wakes up after 7 hours, which happens to be 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. Just don't set an alarm clock. Haven't set one for years. And it's through that was like, I read books to my kids now, and it's just like we go to bed at the same time. And now, because we have that and we have the freedom, my wife and I get to spend a lot of the time during the day together, or we do lunch dates, or we do breakfast dates, or different things. But it started, way back then, which is like, you have almost your most precious thing was time, not capital. Like at first, when you're getting in investing, it's like, I can't find the right deal. Then you deploy your capital, you run out of capital. So now you're like, ooh, what am I going to do next? So now you have to figure out how to get private money or how to stretch your return on investment. And then it turns into, you got a return on time invested. If you can get another $1,000 a month through real estate, but you're spending another 1,000 hours, that's a bad return on time investment. Just like you'd be better off just putting your money into the stock market and not touching it or doing anything. So for me, I got really meticulous with delegating anything that was below my engineering hourly wage of $35 an hour. It was cleaners. It was people doing stuff around the house. It was, trying to get other people at work to do different things. And it was like, I was either a family man, an engineer, or a real estate investor. And I almost left no time for anything else. There was still some personal development in gym and different things that helped, make some of those things work. But I just got laser focused on, here's the things I'm willing to give up, which happened to be a lot of friendships and social media. And now it's like, okay, I kind of only hang around, a certain amount of masterminds and groups, but it all came at a price and a cost. So a lot of that was just, you wake up early, do the real estate stuff, do the family, then it's engineering, then it's family, then it's bed. And so I kind of created that rhythm. And then there was the different versions of real estate where I took just massive action, failed very fast on, hey, the first 5 properties that we bought in our LLC probably are going to make us no money. But through that, you can only learn so much by listening to different podcasts, but the learn by doing is what I definitely learned, which was like, oh, you can't buy a 1910 house and expect 10K in rehab to fix the whole house. It's like, oh, I got 4 windows. And it's like, I didn't touch the bathroom or anything else, and gutters and siding. And it's like, okay, well, I'm not going to do that again. And so it was kind of the school of hard knocks that way. But it was just through that repetition and experience that then led us into buying homes for college kids where they'd pick out a house, we'd buy it and rent it to them at the 1% rule. So now we kind of had a little bit of deal flow, and then we started getting into rent to own, and then we started doing some flips. And so it's kind of transitioned from that, hey, it's cool, we have one property, to now kind of getting the hockey stick where, hey, we did 30 properties last year, and we're going to try to do another 40 this year.
That's amazing. Yeah. I just have to pick up another common thread that I can see across all of this. For the listeners that are listening that want to do what Adam is doing at this point, that means that you're not going to have to, you're going to have to basically forego some of those Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad and some of those free time sinks, I'd like to say, and be super intentional. I think the major theme that I'm picking up behind this, Adam, is that your intention was just there. I wanted to ask you, was there any point in time in which you became super intentional out of reason? Like you said that, at one point you picked a point in time where you said, I'm going to, anything that's below my wage for what I'm making as a job, like I'm going to outsource or delegate or get some help or eliminate it or, however. Where did this inspiration come from? How did you get this mindset for this?
I would say it came in 3 phases. First, to be honest, 100% selfish. I liked it because I was good at it. It was money. It was a little bit of greed. And it was like, hey, I wanted control and freedom. And it wasn't so much about me and my wife or the kid. And, we were just on the verge of, getting married and having our first kid. I would say through college, I was an extremely self-centered individual. I was like, hey, my goal is just to have fun, right? And it was like, oh, I'm succeeding at that. But then it's like, okay, then what? And it's like, oh, well, I need more money to do it. So then it was almost the corridor principle of like, you open the first door and you realize, oh, well, it turns out like money doesn't do everything. Or it turns out just going for fun in life only gets you so far and you're kind of left empty. So it's like, oh, I should, really figure out, okay, what brings me most happiness here in life? And it's usually health and relationships. All right, let's look at romance. And once I start getting married, it's like, oh, it turns out I'm not the center of the universe. And how much more impactful and fulfilling that was for me and my wife. But then having our first child born, that was a big one, where it was like, you have this amazing creature, you want to spend a ton of time. And that's really when you start getting pulled on. I thought I was busy before kids. If anyone says that they are busy and they don't have kids, I was always like, you're both right, And I think your level or description of you don't have enough time is a little bit jaded. So, because like we're all busy, no matter what you ask anybody, and they're like they're busy, and it's like almost like this epidemic of everyone's just busy because you're always doing something. But there's a special extra pull when you have marriage or especially young kids on just the amount of attention and time that they need. And then third is I have a rare condition called best eye disease, where anytime in the next year or two, I could completely go blind. And I'm doing eye injections that I get every 12 weeks. It's literally a needle to the eye, which is, again, not one of my funnest things, but it's hey, this is helping it. So I thought of like what happened to me and what would happen to my family in the event that my income completely was gone. And I want to set up the families to have, if they wanted to sell everything, if they wanted the passive income, to still have accustomed to some sort of lifestyle that doesn't just go into absolute chaos. And whether it's my blindness, whether it's a sickness, whether if my health or something would happen, I like being prepared, knowing that we have X amount of income, X amount of wealth to be able to handle what life has to throw to us.
That's incredible. First of all, thanks for sharing that. And I wanted to explore this a little bit more. You have a family, you've got kids, you now are married, you have all of these things going for you. Can you talk a little bit about how your typical day looked and what type of systems you built to enable you to operate at such a high level when you had your job, you had this business that, remember, whenever a business is getting started, like there's a lot of thrust in the launch. It's kind of like, if you're trying to launch a rocket ship, right? It takes so much energy and effort, first of all, to get the rocket ship together and get it off the ground. Then you have to make sure that it's pointed in the right direction. But then once it is and you have enough thrust and you're moving and you put all that energy and effort into it, the air gets thinner and thinner until eventually you're out into the atmosphere, right? Into outside the atmosphere, and now there's no resistance at all. But during that first phase of having all this thrust, you have your family behind you. You've got your disease that you're worried about always at the back of your head, and all these things that you just mentioned. What did your day look like? How did you structure it intentionally? And what systems did you use to kind of like make sure you got everything done?
Sure. There was two parts. Appreciate you asking. And as I went through this, two things come to mind. It started off with a strategy that I then built the systems. And so the strategy was, okay, what system has really high leverage? And it happened to be real estate. Okay, within real estate, what has really high leverage? Is it property management? Is it turnkey? Is it rehab? Is it wholesale? Like which one requires very little of Adam time, to be able to do that? And then how can I achieve it? It was like, ooh, do I build a team? For me, it was selecting and finding a business partner. In 2017, we formed a partnership that we still have to this date, and I bet is the single greatest thing that has led to the success and being able to do this. I oftentimes take it for granted, and I forget doing this ourselves is extremely hard. And I know Dave Ramsey will say the only ship that doesn't sail is a partnership. And I was like, well, you could say that about marriage. You're right. And I was like, and it could be a little bit pessimistic or optimistic, but similar to marriage, I'm trying to give my wife the better end of this deal. And I'm trying to show her love, similar to my business partner. I'm trying to give him the better end of this deal. We have complementary skill sets where he's like the operator. I'm over there trying to be more of like a salesman or visionary, if you're familiar with like visionary and integrator. And that worked out so tremendously well that when I was stressed or if I wanted to be out, and when you're a solopreneur, I think it's extremely hard because I did that, for a year or two. And it's like, I could talk to my wife, but she really didn't want to hear about it. And so you can join masterminds, which I would strongly suggest, which is what I did. And so once you did that, then it was like, okay, what are now some of the systems and techniques? And so it was like, how can I automate things in the calendar? How do I automate things at work? And it was like using Zapier. It was, nowadays it's using ChatGPT. And so I think we have like 2,000 Zaps running every week, which is like, you have Google ads going, so Adam's doing nothing. And we have probably 200 to 300 people on our website right now. Like that is awesome. Then out of those 200 or 300 people, I bet 10 people today are going to reach out and say, hey, Adam, will you or your company buy our home? Then I have a sales. And by the way, once they did that, they went onto the website, they read our copy, our testimonials. They filled out this form that talks to our CRM. And as soon as they filled it out, it gave them this questionnaire and they've gotten a text already, probably while we're sitting on here, all that powered through some CRM, some Zapier. And then if they're qualified, because I think in marketing, you're equally disqualifying people as you are trying to qualify them. So we actually try to DQ really hard. I'm trying to qualify as hard as I can on Google ads where I'm saying, hey, if you make at least $10,000 a month and have 20 grand to put down, I want to buy you a house. And if someone who doesn't make 10 grand a month and doesn't have 20 grand to put down, they still click on the ad, but it's less, right? Because I'm trying to not get them to click on the ad. So it's like, oh, how do I use that strategy and system? So now they're all the way through. They're a warm body. Now Joe, our salesperson, is booking a call with them to have that conversation, all while Adam used to go to every loan officer and agent, give up my personal cell. And then I just had this backlog of text messages. And man, I suck at follow up. It's usually you're really good at one. You're either like a quick starter or really good at follow up. I know there's some rare breeds that say they can do both, but for me, I can walk into a room, I could do a podcast and just live, zero prep, and like that's my, as Dan Sullivan and Cole, like kind of my unique capability is I have that. But if I'm going to follow up with someone like 7 times with an email or a text, like I can't log it in my brain. I suck at a spreadsheet. I don't have like a system for categorizing that. My business partner and our team has basically used technology so that my brain is for creating ideas, but not for storing them. So it's like, get all those things out, have the team in place to be able to do that. So a lot of those technology ones, but otherwise it's been, how do you leverage other people's time, money, and resources?
Yeah, so these are the questions that take a lot of intention and a lot of experience too. You have to know exactly what you're doing in order to be able to build the systems around it, because there is a level of understanding for doing a thing, but then there's a higher level of understanding for automating the thing, because you have to understand all the inputs that are coming in any potential situation that comes out, because you're building a system that's meant to scale. No matter how many inputs coming in, you have the outputs coming to be the same. So I can totally relate with all of that. Is there any systems that you put in place, just to ask the question again in a different way, any systems you put in place on your personal side, not for business, but things that you did, like simple things, maybe time blocking or Calendly or things like that, that you used to help manage your time when you were at a crunch time, where you had the side business, you had your full-time job and your family and your kids were young? Anything that
Sure.
you could
It's I'm a big fan of the one thing, which is make in the morning and manage in the afternoon. So no meetings in the morning, maybe an 11 o'clock meeting, but in general, it was like 8 to 11. Man, that's like your superpower. Depending on what time that you wake up. And for me, it's like I try to get 2 of those, where I try to get that between like 5 and 6 a.m. and then again from like 9 to 11. I feel like you get 80% of your work done during that time period. And the rest is just that, like, shut off, like the no email on your phone notifications. That's a game changer. Like, make more time, the book where it's like, take off all the notifications besides if my wife is calling, and really limit what those are, put it on do not disturb, whatever you got to do. And for 2 hours, you're just, what's my one thing? So for me, it was like waking up, figuring out what are the 3 things I want to do today. It's some prayer and meditation. It's a little bit of exercise. It's going through that, but it's no meetings in the morning if I can help it. And then no meetings after 5 o'clock, because that's when Adam's off and when he's with family. And I've actually noticed that even though my brain doesn't shut off and I'm working on being more present with my kids, I'm physically there with them every time from 5 till they go to bed at 7:30 or 8 o'clock. It's like I'm physically there. And so I'm working on, being a little bit more intentional. So those were some, maybe key things on the time blocking thing, but it's really hard to think of like, what are 3 things I'm going to do? And before you delegate something, do it yourself. It's really easy to say, hey, go find me a property. Okay, well, actually go find a property. Loom videos, pay the $20 a month.
I was just about to mention that. Yeah.
And it's so crazy. You're like, if you're about to do a task and you've already done it more than once, literally hit record. It's got your video, it's got your audio, and it's got your screen. And you just tell them exactly what you're doing for prospecting for a task. And it turns out it's going to get wrong. But here's what you're doing. You're doing 10%. Somebody else is doing 80%. And then you're going to come through and do the last 10%. All you're looking for, it's really hard at the beginning, because some people just want to delegate a task and just expect it to be perfect. And I was coached 10, 80, 10. It's like, you got to get it started, do the video, say, this is how I move, this is the resources, here's the expectations, let them take it to 90%, and then you just got to realize you got to finish it off. But if you just do that on enough tasks, 80% of your work is done, which is 100% awesome.
It feels like I'm talking to myself here, which is amazing. We have systems as well that are very similar to this. And the extra layer that we put onto this is, after the task has been done effectively about 4 or 5 times, I'm meeting with my virtual assistants once every 2 days. So we meet 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And every time they complete a task, increasingly more so, I've been asking them to document what they did. Even if there was a Loom video, we use Asana. I know there's Monday, there's ClickUp, there's all these other tools out there that you can use to help manage projects, especially if you're delegating. Highly recommend you need to get away from email. Just putting that out there to the audience. Email is like You got Slack for direct communication, which is much better. Then you've got, Asana or some of these other tools to help manage workflows, right? And I guess going back to what I was saying is that once we record a Loom video and the process has been followed correctly, I actually have them build an SOP inside of our library with that Loom video inside the description, and then they break down subtasks. That way, we can refer to that task in Asana as an SOP in other tasks inside of Asana. So if you're familiar with the way Asana or Monday or Go, some of these other platforms work, you can basically create cards with links to SOPs that when you duplicate them, like say this is a podcast production, right? I have a step-by-step process where the podcast SOP is embedded right inside of the actual recording for the podcast that moves through my Asana platform. And then every time that gets duplicated with a new guest, right, the SOP stays right there, and so do the steps, and they move along through each one. You can follow the process. So, and then I'm big about batching as well, doing as many things as you can at one time and using the process flow to help do all of this. So it feels like I'm really talking with someone who understands me, which makes me feel special. So
no, and I love the intentionality of having, hey, I did the 80-10-10, and then you go back and like
yes.
I'm first going to show you, or I'm going to teach you, I'm going to show you, you're going to do it, I'm going to watch, but then it's like, okay, now do this in your own words so that they own it. I think is a great super hack because, hey, even if your virtual assistant isn't there, the next person that's going to come along, they didn't just take your information, do their own filtering and figure out what their answer is going to be. Is now they have, kind of the filtered version of how this person interpreted your message and what they were doing with it.
That's exactly right. That's the reason that we did this, is so that if that assistant ends up needing to move on or ends up leaving the organization or gets promoted out of that spot, right, where they're not responsible for it anymore, and we need to add people, that way you can plug them right in directly with it, and everything is right there in the task, and there's only very little training necessary. Anyway, we can talk about this for a very long time. But I do want to move on here because we have a lot to cover.
And one thing, if I may add to that, is I think I got hyper obsessed with efficiency versus effectiveness. I remember when Stephen Covey in the book was talking about imagine you climbed up this ladder in 4.2 seconds and you're like, man, I really thought I crushed this. And it turns out it's against the wrong wall. And that really challenged me to be like, oh, effective trumps efficiency all day. He's like, the worst thing you can do effectively, or the worst thing you can do is do that efficiently would not need be done at all, which is like 90% of emails, which is like responses. And the other hack was, I want people to communicate to me in written, but I want to communicate to them in voice. Because I want someone to articulate very well, because it's hard to write concisely and put your pens and thoughts. Who was it? Was it Teddy? He was like, I would have written you a shorter letter if I had more time. And it's really hard to condense things. But if I'm talking to someone, it's really easy to use voice because I can then delegate really fast, but I want to read through text. So just a couple things there on effectiveness and efficiency.
I love it. There is one episode of the Tim Ferriss show where he brings on someone, and I'm thinking of it right. I'm actually trying to look for the episode as we're talking right now. But it goes through what the founder of, I think it's a biotech company or something like that, but they have a system where they don't even have meetings at their company. Everything is Loom videos and asynchronous communication to one another. So instead of meetings, it's all just Loom videos. And the way that this guy breaks all this down, I'm probably going to end up putting it in the show notes, or if I can actually find it, I'll go ahead and mention what show number it is. But it's awesome. It's one of my favorite episodes ever, and I highly recommend it. Anyway, let's move on. I want to talk a little bit more before we go away from this crunch time where you're in the middle of your career and trying to build a business. Your family has had some influence on you. And can you talk a little bit about anything, maybe we already covered it, about how your family helped influence the way that you were living or helped influence your systems or processes? Was there anything that they injected as far as wisdom goes, or helped you realize anything outside of what you already mentioned? Or do you think you covered it already?
I was working for an engineering firm, and the CEO and founder of 20 plus years took it from $0 in revenue to like 40 million in revenue, this engineering firm. And I had a personal relationship with this individual. He was charismatic. He was dynamic. He was a super savvy, and I would call him a role model. Figured out then that he ended up getting divorced and never saw his kids when he was younger. And he was just absolutely miserable. And I was like, and this whole narrative built up because when someone said, hey, Adam, what are you? I'm like, oh, I'm an engineer and I'm doing real estate. Oh, and I happen to have a family. And I stumbled across, the front row dad's mantra, which is, family men with businesses, not businessmen with families. And that really resonated with me. It's like, oh, like you have this delayed gratification always going on. And it's like, oh yeah, no, I'm doing it for the business. I'm doing it for the family, but it's kind of this false dichotomy. And then it turns out if you don't see the family along the way, like just how empty that is. And so living that firsthand was, even though you maybe don't want it, like you probably know what's good for you in the end. And so just that discipline of delayed gratification, just to start off, because to be honest, I enjoy real estate. Would I give it up? I would for my wife and my family. I'd be really sad, but I enjoy it. But I also realize that you got to have some balance. And so for me, it's like, as long as I'm doing 40 hours of work and 30 hours of family time, like that's a pretty good balance for me, as if I'm getting 20% or 20 hours of personal time as well. So I kind of have this 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 time allotment that I use just for allocating the hours for my week, just to make sure that I'm in some balance. But that's really what hit me, is I started to just understand and then fall in love with these trio of legends that I'm crafting here. It's almost like my own little experiment. I'm like running little marshmallow tests on my toddler of like, hey, if you don't eat this one marshmallow now, I'll give you 2 later, trying to figure out and like instill delayed gratification and watch him squirm and be like, how long can you wait, to see if you can get, a second marshmallow. And so like, and I can honestly say that I'm their best friend. Like I play dolls, I play, horses. My son likes to, wrestle and do dinosaurs and different things. And it's fallen in love with that. And man, the amount of pure joy that they can teach me and just raw emotions and zest for life is just unimaginable. And it's that engineering side of me that it's always transactional and very low relational. And it's tapping into that other side that I was like, this is awesome. And it's a part of me that, was maybe hidden a little bit, or it wasn't kind of the strengths. And so I kind of, tucked it away. And so once I realized that probably 80% of my happiness here on earth is going to be my health and my relationships, that it's literally written up on my wall that I'm looking over my computer right now. It just says, remember, Adam, your health and relationships will determine the majority of your happiness here on earth. And just remembering that is so huge.
There's so much to unpack here. First of all, kids teaching us presence, because there is no one in the planet that can be as present as kids are. They tell you what they think right away, at least when they're very young, and before a lot of that programming that we put into them about, white lies and things like that, as the socialization happens. It's really amazing to watch that unfold. Second thing is just how important life is. Like the true currency in life is not money, it's time, and it's relationships and health. And so those 3 things that you nailed down are the intangible things that really make it worthwhile, because in the end, no one's going to care what your bank account is when you're dead. And living a life fully lived is one where you have full trust of your partner, full relationship, like, outwardness and value adding, which I can see is also a common theme throughout listening to you talk. And then just having full control of your health and making sure that you're very extremely healthy on all of that. I have an unfair advantage because my wife is a naturopathic doctor, so I'm very lucky to have her help me out a little bit from time to time. But I think that it's really important to emphasize that priorities are priorities. And yes, there's times where you need to start focusing on your business plan to get you to a point where you're at right now, Adam, right? Like, obviously, you may need to go out of balance a little bit. That's what's mentioned in the one thing. Like, I don't know if you remember that page where you have like a line down the middle that's perfect balance. And I hate to say unsuccessful people, they never very far from that line. But then you have very successful people that you have family on one side and business on the other. And this line in the middle is your time balance. And you generally stay pretty close to it, but you go way out on at some points of time according to the points of need, right? And I think that's the way that true balance is. Like balance not from a day-to-day basis, but from a year-to-year basis. Like what are you focusing on each year, each month, and what's your intention? And as long as you have those on your radar, I think you're doing well. And then last thing I'm going to mention here is that episode that I recommend that you listen to is Tim Ferriss Show episode number 694 with Sam Korkos, the founder of Levels. He talks about virtual assistants, 10x delegation, and basically getting freedom by letting go. So lots of awesome stuff in there that I think you would dig, as well as the people in listening to this podcast right now. Okay,
it's great. I love the inspiration.
Awesome, man. Yeah, I think you're gonna love it, and you gotta let me know how that works out for you once you listen to it. And by the way, if you're working with John Vroman, love all the work that he's doing because he actually was involved in some of like the mastermind groups that I was a part of many years ago. And yeah, Front Row Dads is a great foundation. I encourage everyone out there to go ahead and check it out because they do some really incredible work, very incredible, like uplifting, tear invoking work actually. So it's very, very good stuff. All right. Now, let's back up a little bit more. I want to talk about business again. Managing 50 homes or 50 plus homes now, I imagine, across multiple states requires these effective systems that you kind of like talked about before with like your acquisition process. Can you talk a little bit about how you're managing all of this in-house? Like once you have the acquisitions here, what does it look like once, that sale begins? Because when I do my apartment syndications, there's a lot of work that goes to do the acquisition, but then that's really just the beginning of all the work because the asset management and the ongoing decisions you make once you're owner or once you're basically a key stakeholder after making the sale done, that's where the true like money is made. So can you talk a little bit about like, first of all, your overall process, like, what your business does, and then how you have systems built out for that?
Sure. So two things right away. Number one, my business partner handles a lot of it. So substitute that for property manager or your general partnership team. And so like number one, the fact that he enjoys that or is willing to do it is just like a godsend number one. And so that's why again, if people are on the fence about business partnerships, like if you can find the right one, it's such a game changer. Number two is we act more like a bank than a landlord. And the amount of responsibility that a bank has is like, are you paying the mortgage? Yes or no, and if no, like it's a problem. If it's yes, it's like great. But that way, when there's repairs or maintenance or different things, you eliminate a lot of those stresses on the tenants. And so the fact that we're selling these on a contract for deed or at least with an option to buy significantly reduces the amount of work and property management that we have to do. And it also increases some of the ROI. And so once we get a home under contract or once we've closed, now it's just a matter of getting them mortgage ready, which pairing them up with a loan officer is, again, a fairly helpful endeavor. But as far as the acquisition of it, for us, that's the most work for us. And so we have this kind of 47 checkpoint list. We have the people that we're working through, and just anything buying a piece of property is, fairly convoluted. So I'd be happy to dive into any of those specific areas if you wanted to go a little bit deeper. Let me know which one would be more helpful.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess for me, can you so I know that you described it briefly how the process works. Just out of curiosity, because I'm in this, what happens if you are you trying to match individual people who don't qualify to try to get them with a lender who doesn't who can like has a little bit of flexibility on this with the asset? Obviously the asset needs to be good. I'm sure that's part of your like one of your list items there to do this. What about, would you guys work with like private capital as well, or private lenders like maybe funds or something that would offer more commercial rates to get these people into a point where they are financially ready over like a blueprint? And I have another question too that maybe you can answer. So private money is the first thing, and the second is if you maybe have like a second phase where like there's a training for them, like for the residents that are trying to get this loan, like maybe they have credit score issues or maybe like they need mentoring. Like what does that look like for those people who are moving into the homes?
Sure. So for the people moving into the homes, the residents, we call them tenant buyers. So, and I've been using that vernacular, so I'm going to use that a little bit. And then we have individual real estate investors. So actually what we're doing is almost like the bank is kind of just, the loan officers are kind of shuffling. They're going to Fannie Mae, borrowing the money, they're packaging up as mortgage-backed securities, and then these big venture funds are buying them, and they're getting their 4% or 7% or whatever the numbers are. We're trying to do the same thing, just on an individual basis. So right now, Adam Zock could not get a conventional loan because on paper, I look like crap. And so ironically, I might go to Derek and be like, hey, Derek, could you go get a commercial loan, a hard money loan, a private money loan, and buy this house for me, Adam Zock, in Fargo, North Dakota for $400,000. Here's the deal. I'll give you 20% down. You just go get a loan for $320,000. Whatever your principal insurance, taxes and insurance, or principal interest, taxes and insurance payment is, I'll pay that plus $500 a month. So you're into it for $0. You own title. I'm renting it, but just give me the option to buy back this $400,000 house for $430,000 anytime in the next 3 years. And that's all we're doing is we're first finding the tenant buyer who can't get the bank loan. That's okay, pay 7% interest plus $500 a month. And then we're going out and we're pairing them with real estate investors who are like, I can't find a cash flowing deal in this market to save my life at a 7% interest rate. And we're just saying, hey, go to your bank, borrow at 7%. But we'll hand this person to you. We package everything together, take an assignment fee, and that's how we're connecting these individuals with the whole goal of transforming renters into homeowners. And so we've screened more than 500 of these, completed like the full cycle more on 20 deals where they've actually moved in, got a loan, bought back the home. Not everyone works out perfect, but we're batting extremely well given the traditional rent to own model is kind of like a scam. And so we really set them up for success. And it's usually credit score, debt to income ratio. So whether that's getting them into credit repair, whether that's understanding if they need 2 years of tax returns. And so that's just the niche that we eventually landed on. But the whole goal is get someone into a home, build their wealth that way so they have to move multiple times. And it is a little bit of I'll call it a luxury. Like we tell people that find us, we're like, if you can get a mortgage or you want to wait, just do that. However, if you're moving from Tennessee to Texas, like this family was, that's making $300,000 a year, that's like, I don't want to pick a rental. I want to pick a home listed for sale. Just give me 2 years until I get my tax returns, or because I was switching jobs, Fannie Mae doesn't like that. So you have to get 6 months of, the job history before you qualify. Perfect. They're willing to pay for that premium to pick out a $500,000 house that they get to move in with their family.
Yeah. Wow. Cool. Very cool stuff. I appreciate you explaining the process a little bit easier for me. I'm a little bit slow when it comes to new concepts like this. So I appreciate you breaking it down for me and maybe some of the audience member who wanted to pick up more of what you're doing. So this has been awesome. I know it's already been like about 42, 43 minutes so far since we hit the record button on this. But I do have some questions here in the rapid round, which is the same 5 questions that I ask every single one of my guests. And they're meant to be answered in a very quick manner, about 30 seconds or so. So if you're ready, we're just going to go ahead and rapidly ask them to you. Are you ready?
Ready, Derek.
All right. Number 1, name any resource that was or still is essential in your journey to pursuing freedom.
5-minute journal.
Great. Awesome. Why is that?
So the idea of what's my 3 things that I want to do and what are the 3 things that I'm grateful for. Or I like to change that hack. If you said, what's 3 things I'm grateful for? Oh, my family, my health, my time. And it's like, instead of doing that, say, what, when I think about it, makes me smile? And just a different twist on the gratitude to actually get you to get into a state of gratitude.
Love it. Yeah. I also like the focus on something that's tangible so you don't keep using the same thing every day, right? Like the experiences that you go through each day to day. It's about the phrasing of the question for what you're going to be grateful for that will help yield some of those like different answers that help get the juices flowing. So I love that. Number 2, if you woke up and all of your business was completely gone and all you had was $500, a laptop, a place to live, and some food for your family and everything, how would you rebuild first?
I would first start off by getting the highest paying job that I could, given my current skill set, in probably an employer-employee situation for stability, and then use all of my free time to probably do some version of wholesaling or sandwich lease option to accelerate my active capital while building a business as kind of the third leg. So I would go for stability. I would then go for how to juice the income, and then I would go for wealth building or passive income as kind of pillar number 3.
Yeah, great answer. Number 3, what does your self-reflection and goal-setting practice look like if you have one from day to day?
Oh, I am so deep into goal setting. I might be 1% of the 1% where I'm having quarterly, yearly, semi-annual and reflections. But if you're looking back, there's a simple hack of looking back through your photos with your wife, or your missus or just yourself for the last 12 months. So there's some reflection there. I keep, in the reminders app, I create a new reminder that's just gratitude and wins. And it has to be, if I read it, I have to smile. And so that reflection is like, I ran a half marathon on 0 prep and ran a 9-minute mile. I look at that and I'm like, man, I just channeled my inner David Goggins, got super blistered, but you know what? I'm just super proud of it. Or we went horseback riding with my wife with our 3 young kids, and it was a perfect Minnesota. Leaves are changing colors. It's like 60 degrees, no wind. And my wife looks at me and she's like, hey, I'm really happy with you and what you've built for us. And like words of affirmation, love language, like that really rings a bell for me. And then for goal setting, I go deep every quarter, every year into what I call my life plan, which includes my 25-year vision, my beliefs, my values, my affirmations, my why, my skills and weaknesses, 5-year vision, and then goals.
Amazing.
Which is all in this 20-page document that I have that I call my life plan.
That's great. I love that. That's amazing. We need to talk a little bit more after this recording is over. All right. Number 4, what are the core work habits that you attribute, or I guess personality traits that you attribute mostly to your success?
I would say building the team around me and then leveraging into my strengths. The idea of doing self-assessments was so critical to me, whether it was the DISC profile, what was the Enneagram, whether it was the Strength Finders. And I was like, cool, I'm really good at getting results. I'm really, high achievement motivated, and I'm really good at starting things, and I'm really good at maximizing things. It's like, cool. The more I do that, you know what I hate? Details. And it's like, and I used to struggle and beat my head and just like, I would just do it because I was an engineer and I learned how to do it and I could kind of run through it. But man, it drained my energy really quick. So you figure out what you're really good at, and then you find different people that you can surround yourself with that you can be held accountable. And it turns out they actually like it. They're like, oh, I'm introverted. My wife's introverted. She does like taxes and our P&L and different things. Like she's way better at it and she enjoys it. And I'm like, God bless you.
Love it. All right. Last question for you for today. What tool or process has become one of your most time, money, or energy saving ninja magic tricks that you use every day?
I would say recently, it's the power to say no. So I used to be Mr. Yes Man. And I don't know how many people every day are asking like, hey, can I buy you coffee? Can I do lunch? Can we do this? Can we do that? And it turns out that if you say no to like 90% of things, it's amazing how much your calendar frees up. So it used to be like Calendly. It used to be, hey, I'm just going to focus on my 3 things and get those done. But now it's more strategic of it goes on a future maybe list. Every time I have an idea, every time I have a request, and it turns out in that moment, it always seems like, oh, yes, I'm just saying yes. But you realize if you're saying yes now, you're saying no to something else in the future. Mm-hmm. And so that's probably been the biggest time hack is like I found myself just overcommitting to everyone else.
Where do you, just from my knowledge, because I'm definitely going to be doing this, implementing this, and this is the solution to a problem I didn't know I had. What tool do you use to actually put this down? Are you using like an app or a Google Doc, or how are you capturing these in the moment?
Sure. So there's 2 things. There's the quick capture where I say, hey, Siri, remind me, and it might go off here, but or it's just like, it's the quick capture. It's on my brain. Somebody asked me to do something. It's a text. I hit read, and it's like, oh, I don't want to hit unread, but I want to maybe think about answering it to him. So it's like getting out of there, and it's just into this depository. And from there, I then sort it into business or personal. And then I have, which are like personal someday or business someday. And you sort those into that category. And right now it's just on my phone because I can do it here and it's in reminders, and it's really quick because I can use voice to get it onto there. And then of course with emails, you can sync them up, and then I use, ClickUp to do, a few other things. But in general, that's the process of just capturing it first, and then it's organizing it second. And if I'm then going to say yes on it, it's like, ooh, if I move it off of my list and it comes back up again, then it's a maybe. But then every now and then you'll sort through it and be like, oh man, I thought this was like a 9 out of 10 priority. Turns out it's like a 2 after 24 hours.
Yeah. It's funny how like the time and the wisdom piece will eventually like kind of show and reveal to you what really is important. Like if it's something that was important to you 3 months ago or 2 months ago, there's Siri chiming in, right? Listening to your
That's so funny. The whole thing, I was like, man, that's the longest blog I think I've ever had.
That's funny. It's like a ChatGPT prompt, So
that's right.
Anyway, well, yeah, no, I was just going to say that, it's having a place to sort it out where if it's true, 2 months from now or 3 months from now, then obviously it's something that needs to be acted on, right? But if it's something that's like, yeah, this isn't an issue anymore, or I'm not feeling this, or this isn't the direction I want to go, then that's a perfect way. So I love that maybe list. That's a great technique.
And a more recent hack is, it's tough because I feel like every 6 months I switch like productivity hacks. Because I'm like, oh, this one's the greatest. It's ClickUp, then it's Todoist, then it's iCloud Reminder. So it's like, it just happened to be whatever flavor I'm on, because every time I hear something new, it's like, oh, that sounds great. And this will solve all my productivity problems, and you kind of jump ship. But the one theory that from Todoist that I held true was any new task that I'm added is assuming it's a priority number 4. Which means it's 1's the highest. So if I add anything, it's assuming it's a default 4. I have to go in there and change it to a 1, 2, or 3, which is just very helpful for me personally, just knowing that anything new is always less important than what I previously said I was going to do. And just by using that order, I then have to mentally like, oh, it turns out this one actually is a priority 2 and it's above this priority 3. But just by default, everything's less of a priority than anything I previously committed to.
Amazing. Adam, man, it's been fun having you on this podcast. Like, the time has flown by. I can't believe it's already been, almost an hour here. But what I do want to do before we go is allow the people to hear from you where they can learn about what you have going on, where they can find out more about what you have. So I'll just give you the floor for just a couple of seconds here to share with the audience where they can get to you.
For sure. So I wish I was better at social media in different games, but I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook, and whether they're on the show notes or you're searching for Adam Zock, I'm the co-founder of Home Equity Partner. If you're specifically into lease option agreements, you can go to homeequitypartner.com/investors, and we give away a attorney vetted lease option agreement. So whether you just want it for your real estate contracts, if you're like, hey, what's a lease with an option to buy, and I want to do that on a single family or a commercial or any sort of business, you can look at like the different terms that are going through there. So I would say that would just be a helpful resource. If people want to download that, just do the email. And of course, if you want to reach out, there's other ways to reach out on the website too at homeequitypartner.com.
Amazing. And of course, I'll be linking to all of the links that you mentioned, Adam, at least if they were in the production form that you filled out before you came onto the podcast, so that you all can get to them easy on the podcast show page, which is available anywhere you got into this podcast. So whether you found us on YouTube or Spotify, please check that out. I also want to remind you all that we really appreciate engagement and we really want to hear from you. So wherever you're listening to this or watching it, please make sure that you engage with us. You give that the thumbs up, the like, comment, hit the notification bell. Anything that you can do to interact with us will help appease the algorithm gods so that we can get more incredible guests like Adam on the show and also appeal to more other amazing listeners like yourself. Thank you, dear listener, for listening to us all the way to the end of the show. And Adam, it was such a pleasure having you on. Thanks for coming on, man.
You're welcome, Derek. And I've been on a lot of podcasts, and I think your listeners already know it in the fact that we've only done this, but I think you have the most unique blend of humility and intelligence I've ever had from a podcast host, is because I feel like you're trying to not show how smart you are, and then you can't help it when you start talking. You your systems and automations and your intelligence starts showing through, but you're extremely humble about it. So I appreciate it. Just wanted to applaud you for having a great show here, making it super easy. And I imagine you're going to have just a tremendous amount of success in life.
Thank you so much. And likewise to you, man. Such a great compliment to end it. I think this is a great time. I think I'm ready to call it a day at this point. Thank you so much, Adam, for coming on. And thanks, listeners, for listening. We'll see you guys next time.
Take care.